Ever hit that moment where you glance at your bank account and actually see 5 digits sitting there? $10,000. Congratulations. You've officially accomplished something that a surprising number of people never actually do. You've saved 10 grand. That's real money. But here's the thing that nobody tells you about hitting that milestone. Having the 10,000 isn't actually the accomplishment. Knowing what to do with it without completely sabotaging your financial future is where things actually get interesting. You've probably spent months or maybe years grinding, picking up extra shifts, cutting expenses to the bone, maybe saying no to things you actually wanted to do, all to reach this number. And now that you're here, you're faced with a decision that could honestly shape the next decade of your financial life. What do you actually do when you have this money? The internet is absolutely flooded with advice, ranging from genius to completely insane. Like some random person on TikTok will tell you to throw it all into cryptocurrency. Your friend thinks you should day trade stocks. Your mom thinks you should just keep it in a regular savings account. Your coworker is convinced you should buy a rental property with it. Everyone has an opinion, and most of it is noise. My name is Ian, and I help people understand how money actually works instead of how financial institutions want you to think it works. Because let me be honest, the financial industry makes money when you make bad decisions. They make money when you're confused. They make money when you panic sell. They make money when you pay fees you don't understand. If you've just hit $10,000 and want to make choices that will actually move you toward real financial independence, instead of just making other people rich off your money, make sure to subscribe and hit the like button if this helps you avoid mistakes that could cost you tens of thousands down the road. The truth is, most people who scrape together 10 grand make the same critical errors that keep them from ever building real wealth. They either freeze up completely and do absolutely nothing because they're paralyzed by indecision, or they get overconfident and make fast moves that sound smart in the moment, but are actually terrible for their situation. Today, I'm going to walk you through exactly what you should do once you hit 10,000, and more importantly, what you absolutely should not do if you want that money to grow into something substantial. But before we get into the 7 things, let me destroy a myth that's probably bouncing around in your head right now. Having $10,000 does not make you. I know that might sound discouraging, especially if you've worked seriously hard to save it, but it's the truth you need to hear. $10,000 puts you ahead of most people financially. That's real. But wealth is something different. Wealth is financial freedom. Wealth is options. Wealth is the ability to not do something you hate because you need the paycheck. $10,000 is a foundation. It's the beginning. It's the starting line of building actual wealth. This is where the real game begins, and the decisions you make from this point forward will genuinely determine whether you build something substantial or stay exactly where you are forever, just with a different number in your account. The first thing you need to do, and this might sound weird, is absolutely nothing, at least for a little bit. I know that sounds crazy when you've got all this money sitting there in your account, but hear me out. The biggest mistake people make when they hit any significant savings milestone is immediately rushing to deploy all of it because they're terrified of missing out on gains. They've been saving for so long that they think any day not invested is wasted time. This urgency leads to some genuinely terrible decisions. Here's what you actually need to do instead. Take a step back and look at your complete financial picture. Yes, having 10,000 is awesome, but what does the rest of your situation actually look like? Are you carrying any debt? Do you have a legitimate emergency fund separate from this money? How stable is your income? What are your actual financial goals? These questions matter way more than whatever the stock market did yesterday or what some guru is telling you to do on YouTube. Spend a few weeks just thinking about it. Let the panic of having undeployed money fade a little bit. Talk to people you trust. Run through scenarios in your head. The best financial decisions come from a calm, thoughtful place, not from rushed urgency. This patience alone will save you from mistakes that could cost you thousands. You'll also want to think about where this money came from. Is it a bonus from work that you can rely on again? Is it savings from cutting expenses? Is it an inheritance? The source actually matters because it tells you something about your financial trajectory. If you consistently save money, you're in a very different situation than if this is a one-time windfall you'll never see again. The second thing you need to do is make sure your emergency fund is actually in place before you do anything else. This isn't sexy advice. It's not going to generate exciting returns or make for a cool story, but it's literally the difference between building wealth and staying broke forever. If you don't have a proper emergency fund yet, you need to carve out a portion of that 10,000 for this right now. I don't care how boring it sounds or how little interest you're earning. Your emergency fund isn't an investment. It's insurance. It's protection against life punching you in the face when you absolutely least expect it. How much should you set aside? The old rule of 3 to 6 months of expenses still applies, but you need to think about your situation specifically. If you're single, have no dependents, and work in a stable job, 3 months of expense might be enough. If you're married, have kids, own a home, or work in something volatile or contract-based, you probably need closer to 6 months. The amount matters because an emergency fund that's too small is basically useless. If an emergency happens and you only have 1 month of expenses saved, but you actually need 3, you're going to be forced to go into debt. That defeats the entire purpose. You don't stuff this money under your mattress either. High-yield savings accounts are currently offering rates that haven't been seen in a long time. We're talking about 4 to 5% annual returns on money that's completely safe and immediately accessible. That's real returns on money that needs to stay liquid. Let's do some quick math that might surprise you. $5,000 in a traditional savings account earning basically nothing generates maybe $5 per year. The same $5,000 in a high-yield savings account earning 5% generates $250 annually. That's enough to cover a week of groceries or multiple utility bills just from interest on money you need to keep liquid anyway. The emergency fund is not optional. It's foundational. Everything else you do with money depends on having this in place. The third critical move is eliminating any high-interest debt before you even think about investing a single dollar. I know this advice is about as thrilling as watching paint dry. Nobody gets excited about paying off credit card debt, but it's mathematically essential, and I need you to understand why. If you're carrying credit card debt at 18, 20, or even 25% interest while you're trying to invest in the stock market, hoping for 10% returns, you're literally paying someone else to make you poor. The guaranteed return from paying off high-interest debt beats the uncertain returns from any investment you could make. This becomes especially important when you really think about the psychological side of carrying debt while trying to build wealth. Carrying debt while you're trying to get ahead is like trying to fill a bucket that has a huge hole in the bottom. Even if you're making good returns on your investments, those monthly debt payments are constantly draining your cash flow and limiting your options. You're essentially fighting against yourself. Debt elimination gives you something that stock investments never can. It gives you guaranteed returns and immediate improvements to your cash flow. Here's where most people mess this up. They want to keep their debt and invest simultaneously because they're worried about missing out on market gains. This is emotional thinking disguised as mathematical reasoning. The reality is that eliminating 20% interest debt gives you an immediate 20% return with zero risk. Show me an investment that guarantees 20% returns with absolutely zero risk, and I'll show you a scam. Those don't exist. But paying off credit card debt, that's a guaranteed win. Once the high interest debt is gone, your psychological state changes too. You're no longer fighting against yourself. You can actually move forward. And here's something that people rarely think about. Debt limits your options. If you're carrying $5,000 in credit card debt, that's constraining your entire future. You can't quit a job you hate because you need the stable paycheck to service the debt. You can't take a risk on a business idea because you're already obligated to make payments. You can't negotiate from a position of strength because you're desperate to keep any income. But someone with zero debt, they have leverage. They have options. With $10,000 in zero debt, you could take 3 months off if you wanted to. You could pursue an opportunity that might work out. You're not trapped. That freedom is worth more than whatever modest returns you might get from investing while carrying debt. The fourth thing you need to understand is the power of tax-advantaged accounts. This is where most people leave serious money on the table without even realizing. If you haven't maximized your contributions to tax-advantaged retirement accounts, you're essentially declining free money and paying unnecessary taxes to the government. These contribution limits exist every single year, and they represent some of the most powerful wealth-building tools available to regular people, not just the rich. For 2020, you can contribute up to $7,000 to a traditional or Roth IRA if you're under 50. If you're self-employed or have access to a solo 401k, you can contribute significantly more. Health savings accounts provide triple tax advantages that honestly make them incredibly powerful for long-term wealth building. These aren't just retirement accounts. They're wealth-building machines that let you legally paying taxes on investment growth for decades. The decision between traditional and Roth contributions depends on your current income level and what you expect your tax situation to look like in retirement. If you're in a high tax bracket now and expect to be in a lower bracket when you retire, traditional contributions make mathematical sense. If you're early in your career or expect tax rates to increase in the future, Roth contributions let you pay taxes now at lower rates and withdraw everything tax-free later. But here's the part that actually changes how you think about these accounts. The contribution limits aren't just suggestions. They're opportunities that expire every single December 31st. Miss them and you literally can never get them back. That unused contribution space is gone forever, along with decades of potential tax-free growth. That's not something you want to mess. Contributing to these accounts before you do anything else with your money is like finding free money that the government is willing to let you keep. Think about this concretely. If you're 25 years old and you contribute $7,000 to a Roth IRA this year, and it grows at an average of 8% annually. In 40 years, that $7,000 becomes almost $150,000, and you withdraw every penny of that completely tax-free. Now imagine doing that every single year for the next 40 years. That's millions of dollars in tax-free growth. That's the power of these accounts. Most people ignore them and then wonder why they retire broke. The fifth crucial decision is choosing an actual investment strategy. This is where people either start building real wealth or become cautionary tales at dinner parties. The investment world is specifically designed to separate you from your money through unnecessary complexity, hidden fees, and emotional manipulation. Everyone wants to sell you something, and most of it is garbage wrapped in fancy marketing language. Here's what the financial industry doesn't want you to understand. The most boring investment strategy consistently outperforms the exciting ones. While some guy on YouTube is telling you about his secret stock picking system that's going to make you rich, and your brother-in-law is bragging about his cryptocurrency gains, the actually wealthy people are quietly putting their money into simple index funds and letting compound interest do the work. Index funds aren't sexy. They don't give you amazing stories to tell at parties. Nobody's going to be impressed when you mention that you own the entire S&P 500 through a single fund. But you know what is genuinely impressive? Actually having money when everyone else is struggling. Index funds tracking the S&P 500 have averaged around 10% annually for decades, including through wars, terrible recessions, market crashes that made grown investors cry, and everything in between. The math on this is stupidly simple, yet most people completely ignore it. $10,000 invested in an index fund, averaging 10% annually, becomes over $25,000 in 10 years without you adding another single penny. In 20 years, it becomes over $65,000. In 30 years, you're looking at over $170,000. This isn't get rich quick. This is get rich inevitably, assuming you don't do anything stupid. But here's where people really mess this. They think they're smart enough to beat the market. They want to time the market perfectly, pick individual stocks, or follow some guru's trading signals. 90% of professional fund managers who do this for a living cannot consistently beat the market, but Dave from accounting thinks he can do it while working a full-time job and raising kids. The arrogance is actually breathtaking. When you have $10,000 to invest, dollar cost averaging becomes your best friend. Instead of throwing all $10,000 into the market right now and then watching it drop 20% next week, spread your investments over several months. Maybe invest $2,000 per month for 5 months or $1,000 per month for 10 months. This strategy significantly reduces the risk of investing everything at exactly the wrong time and then spending months staring at an account balance that's gone down. Think about it this way. If you invest all $10,000 on day one and the market drops 20% the next week, you've instantly lost $2,000 on paper. That's painful. That's the kind of thing that makes people panic sell at the worst possible time. But if you'd spread it out over 5 months and the market drops, you're actually getting shares cheaper in months 2 through 5. You're buying more shares when they're on sale. That's the power of dollar cost averaging. It removes timing risk from the equation. The sixth thing you need to understand is real diversification, not the kind that financial advisors usually push on people to generate more fees. Real diversification isn't owning 15 different mutual funds that all basically hold the same stocks anyway. It's spreading your risk across genuinely different types of assets that react differently to economic conditions. Most people with $10,000 should primarily focus on stocks and bonds. Stocks provide growth potential. Bonds provide stability and income. The mix between them depends on how aggressive you want to be and when you'll need the money. If this is money you won't touch for at least 5 years, you can handle more stocks. If you might need it sooner, bonds become more important. Real estate also deserves consideration when you can access it. With $10,000, direct real estate investment is probably not realistic, unless you're looking at real estate investment trusts, which trade like stocks but own actual income-producing properties, like apartments and shopping centers. REITs are required to pay out most of their profits as dividends, making them excellent sources of passive income. You can own them inside your regular brokerage. International diversification also matters more than most people realize. The United States represents maybe half of the world's stock market value, which means there's an entire other half of opportunities in other countries. International funds give you exposure to companies and economies that might outperform when the US market struggles. You don't need to be complicated about it, but having some exposure to international markets is just smart strategy. Diversification isn't about being fancy. It's about not putting all your eggs in one basket and then panicking when that basket wobbles. The seventh and most important thing you need to do is develop systems that prevent you from sabotaging yourself. This is actually harder than it sounds. Having money is easy. Keeping money and growing money requires the kind of discipline that most people simply don't possess. The financial industry, social media, and your own brain will constantly try to convince you to make changes that benefit everyone except you. Set up automatic investments that move money from your checking account to your investment accounts without requiring you to make any decisions. Automate your contributions, your emergency fund deposits, and your taxable investments if you're using one. When investing becomes automatic, you completely remove emotion from the equation. equation. You can't panic sell during market crashes if your money is automatically buying more shares every single month while prices are low. That's actually the opposite of what you should do, and automation forces you to do the right thing even when you're terrified. Create specific rules for yourself and follow them religiously. Maybe you decide to check your investment balances only once per year. Maybe you commit to increasing your investment contributions every single time you get a raise. Maybe you promise yourself that you will never ever make changes to your strategy during market volatility. Whatever rules you create, stick to them, even when every instinct is screaming at you to do something different. The biggest enemy of wealth building isn't market crashes or economic recessions, it's your own behavior. People who build substantial wealth over decades aren't necessarily smarter or luckier than everyone else. They're just better at not doing stupid things with their money when emotions run incredibly high. Understand fees and expenses because they matter way more than people think. A 1% annual fee might not sound like much, but on a $10,000 portfolio, that's $100 every single year. Over 30 years, assuming even modest growth, that 1% fee cost you thousands in lost returns. This is why low-cost index funds are so powerful. Instead of paying 1 or 2% annual fees, you might pay just 0.03%. The difference in fees alone can add thousands to your net worth over decades. The financial industry doesn't advertise this because their profits depend on you not understanding how much those fees actually destroy your wealth building. There you have it. 7 things that separate people who stay stuck from those actually build real wealth. Follow these steps. Resist the urge to do anything flashy or complicated. Stay disciplined when everyone around you is making terrible financial decisions. And in a few decades, you're going to be sitting in a completely different financial position than the people you know right now. You'll have options. You'll have security. You'll have the ability to say no to things that don't align with your life. That's what financial freedom looks like. It's not about being rich or having $1 million in the bank. It's about having enough that you're not controlled by money anymore. That's the real game. Start with these 7 things today.